Hello, Mark South, HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane and Hurricane HD video blog for Monday, July 23rd, 2012. I wanted to start out showing you what the sea surface temperature anomalies were. This time in the year 2008, we see there was a pretty significant warming of the eastern Pacific, and the Atlantic Basin had a pretty large cool swath in the Caribbean extending into the southern Gulf of Mexico, but the area from Africa to just about the Lesser Antilles was running at just about normal, perhaps just a little above normal through this region here. As you can see, we also had a very warm water pattern off of the northeast United States, and the subtropical Atlantic hanging in there with a few areas of above, a few areas of below. But the main thing I want you to notice is how this region right here and this region right here look very similar to right now. Here we are today, 4 years later. Now granted, the eastern Pacific water warmth extends a little farther to the west, but you still have this pretty large horseshoe of colder than normal water. This is 4 years ago. You see that in 2008, very large horseshoe shaped area of colder than normal water with this area of warm water sort of sandwiched in between. If we look at what it looks like today, very similar, a little bit more warm water out here in the central Pacific this year as opposed to how things were in 2008. We also see off of Africa all the way over through just about into the Caribbean, water temperatures at or just a little bit above normal, especially through here and along the area just north of the equator, with a large area of warmer than normal water over the northwest Atlantic Ocean off the northeast part of North America. So what does this mean? Well, we'll have to wait and see, but when we have a similar water profile from one year to another, sometimes you can deduce that maybe the hurricane season will have similar results, at least in terms of the amount of activity. That doesn't always work, because there are certainly other factors in play, but when I see the temperatures from '08 look very similar to what they look like this year, and especially in some key areas, it makes me think, okay, well then we will probably have a pretty busy August and September, and as this El Nino starts to take shape here in the Pacific through September, I would think that mid-October at the latest, a good deal of the Atlantic hurricane season will start to shut down as strong upper-level winds begin to increase across this region due to this warming of the eastern Pacific. We'll just have to wait and see, but that's what things look like comparing from '08 to right now. Looking at another perspective, this is the Reynolds methodology for sea surface temperature analysis, and again this is departures from normal, and we see that the eastern part of the eastern Atlantic, a few positive anomalies in here, but look at the rest of the deep tropics, definitely have a few areas of positive anomalies in about this range. This is neutral, or normal or average. This is 1.7 and then 3.3 above. So we see a pretty large area here of just above to maybe a degree Celsius above normal temperatures. And then of course this up here just jumps out at you. Very strong anomalies off the northeast United States, 1, 2 to 3 degrees Celsius above normal. Looking at the actual sea surface temperatures, each of these lines, we call them isotherms, or lines of equal temperature, and we're looking for the 26 degrees Celsius line, which is almost 80 degrees, and there it is right there, pretty far north into the Atlantic, as you'd expect as we get closer to August. And then you have 28 degrees Celsius, which is right there. That is 82 degrees Fahrenheit. And then everything else in here is 29 to 30 degrees Celsius. We're talking water temperatures in the upper 80s. So we're definitely warming up the Atlantic Basin, that warm water starting to creep up the east side of the United States coastline. And this will start to become quite important in case we get a long track hurricane that wants to run the east coast. Not saying that's going to happen, but if it does, then you have to really start to pay attention to where the sea surface temperatures are relative to normal, because warmer than normal sea surface temperatures can provide more energy to a tropical cyclone moving along that path. Alright, so what's going on out there now? Well, not much. We did have an exciting, if you want to call it that, little period yesterday where this tropical wave flared up and it generated a tropical weather outlook, a special one from the National Hurricane Center. It did look like it was going to try to develop if you just looked at the satellite picture only, but remember, there's much more to that than what meets the eye, and there are quite a few negative conditions in place that prevented this from developing, and all that deep convection has disappeared, and you wouldn't even think that anything was there, unless you saw it yesterday. It's just the way it is. The upper atmosphere not conducive for development right now, and while it was interesting to see yesterday, it's pretty much gone today. Here's the intertropical convergence zone across the Atlantic. It is trying to gain a little more steam, if you will, literally and figuratively, as it moistens up the atmosphere and we move away from this pattern of large Saharan air layer outbreaks, and one that's more conducive to these tropical waves here to move off and go across the Atlantic, eventually developing somewhere in here, probably only a couple to maybe 3 weeks away, where we will start to see that happening. In the Eastern Pacific investigation area 90E, remember I've talked about this before, that they go from 90 to 99, these areas of investigation, and the letter E for Eastern Pacific. So we've used up all the 90 through 99s, so we start over again with Invest Area 90E right here. And if we look at an infrared satellite picture of it, a little bit more recent, it's got a little bit of that curled up shape to it here, trying to develop some feeder bands, the typical counterclockwise flow. It probably will develop, and it could be a fairly large system, and then it's going to move on off to the west-northwest towards, you guessed it, colder water that sits out here, and it will die a fairly quick death once it does so, and it will not affect land areas at all. So not bad for the final almost week, a little bit more than a week to go of July. Not a bad way to start the work week, if I can talk. The tropics generally behaving themselves in both basins. Well, that is it for today. I'll be back again tomorrow with another video blog. For Hurricane HD, I'm Mark Sudduth. My website, hurricanetrack.com. Thanks for watching. I'll have another video blog for you tomorrow.